This right here is one of my favorite scenes from part 2 of Inside Job.
Why can't this thing just...
Dad?
What?
I've seen many people interpret this scene as an attempt to deliver some kind of redemption arc for Rand's character. This could be the case, but quite frankly, I think this scene reveals one of Rand's most toxic qualities, as well as provides an answer to why Rand's relationship with his ex-wife Tomiko completely falls apart. For the majority of part 1, Rand has been written as a typical villain, a character whose motives antagonizes that of our main protagonist, and this dynamic is pretty much what we get. He sabotages Reagan's robot in episode 1, he prevents Reagan from organizing a wedding for Tomiko in episode 6, and of course let's not forget his grand finale using Reagan to stage his comeback as CEO of Cognito Inc. It comes as no surprise to everyone to find out that he's a terrible boss. His directions for the company have been pretty much self-serving from day one, and in some instances quite sociopathic. He holds absolutely no regard for the well-being of his employees, nor does he treat any of them with a single ounce of decency. But despite all his despicable actions, we get this interesting dialogue from Rand.
That's how many times I tried to get you both back, you and your mother, into the same timeline. But it never works, Reagan. No matter how many times I try, you both hate me.
You did all this just to get us back?
It's an open and honest line that somberly expresses the very core of Rand's motivations. Family. By revealing Rand's genuine desire, this scene attempts to establish him as a kind of sympathetic villain. Sympathetic villains are quite common in the stories that we love. If you spend any amount of time watching amazing movies, you could probably recognize them yourself. These individuals are often broken by the events of their past, driven by motives that we can empathize with, and much like your typical villain, sympathetic villains also desire power, but their desire is not some insatiable thirst to rule the world. For them, power is simply a means, and for some of them, the only means through which they can fulfill their noble intentions. It's the reason they're often willing to sacrifice anything to acquire it, even if that sacrifice comes at great cost to themselves. They do what they do not for the sake of being evil, but to achieve a noble end. It becomes pretty clear that Rand Ridley falls outside this category. We know very little about the events that made him into the man that he is. The closest thing we get is a throwaway line about his father being a hobo. Although his motivations are something that we can empathize with, he doesn't really sacrifice anything to make progress towards them. He instead manipulates and takes, showing us that he was never written as a sympathetic villain to begin with. But it's the second part of this sentence that really reveals the heart of Rand's character.
No matter how many times I try, you both hate me.
You see, like most narcissists, Rand cares more to be loved than he does to love others. And nothing captures this more perfectly than his actions in part 2 episode 6, where Rand uses the Needy Act to secure a date night with Tomiko. It's a law that legally requires divorced couples to go on a date at least once a month. But when the moment came to actually spend quality time with Tomiko, Rand simply doesn't. He instead outsources the activity of cultivating emotional intimacy with his ex-wife to a semi-functioning robot, and only choosing to return if she makes a sexual advance.
You said you would do anything to win her back except make an effort.
Effort is for people without robots. Hey, can you tag in for me for a while?
Tag in.
Hologram in as me to the date. Recite some poetry. Tomiko will never know.
Rand's problem here is one of building a meaningful relationship with his family, an activity that requires a significant amount of time and emotional work to accomplish. But when presented with the opportunities to do so, like his daughter's childhood or a date night with his ex-wife, again and again, Rand chooses to automate this process with some piece of technology, and in return, he still expects the love, validation, and care of those closest to him. Say what you will about Rand Ridley down in the comments. I know I certainly have, and will continue to do so for the remainder of this video. For all his negative qualities, the man is actually a brilliant scientist, but I think this strength of his, coupled with his negative beliefs about emotions, have become his greatest barrier towards the love of family that he so desperately desires. His approach towards attaining his family's love, although misplaced, is quite understandable, because typically as humans, whenever we face a familiar problem, our first instinct is to opt for solutions that have worked well in the past, or at least lean on our already established strengths. For Rand, it's his genius, it's his skills as an engineer, it's going back to the reality altering device that he built over a decade ago. Seeing that Inside Job has been cancelled by Netflix, we will never get to see what's in store for Rand's character. Whether or not he gets a redemption arc is pretty much in the air right now. If you want to see how Rand's parenting affected his daughter Reagan, check out this video over here, or if you want something completely different, you can click the second video and find out if this egomaniacal scientist is really a god. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.